If you had asked me before I started building guitars what I thought was the scariest part of the process, I would have told you it was bending the sides and carving the neck and heel. Now that I've got a few guitars under my belt, it's nothing like that at all. Those two steps are actually quite easy. But there is one step that fills me with sheer terror, and that's bindings. Hi, I'm Trevor Magnuson and I'm sharing my guitar building process. In this video, I'm going to be routing the binding channels and gluing in the bindings. But before we can do that, there's a couple of things we need to take care of first. The access port cover is not perfectly level with the guitar's tail, so I'm going to have to sand that so that I can barely feel anything. And secondly, the steam bending process left some of the sections of sides with a bit of a wavy profile along the grain. I want to level that now, because if we do it after the bindings are attached, it might leave the thickness of the bindings uneven around the perimeter. The complications. When I was sanding the access port cover, I noticed that these two corners actually sat lower than the tail of the guitar. So to level it, I'd have to take off quite a lot of guitar. So I said, okay, we'll just put a little shim here, glue it in place, sand it until the door is sitting level, and then when we sand it, we'll only have to take the bits of the middle of the door that stick out. But then I remembered, a couple of videos ago, we rubbed candle wax here and melted it in with a glue gun so that glue wouldn't stick to this. So I've sanded away more than I would have liked to. I think I'm down to wood that will accept glue, but we just have to find out.
Chang, 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 chang.
There's a fairly persistent valley that I've been chasing up the bout, and the amount of material I've got to remove to level it is such that I'm actually going cross-grained at 120 grit. Don't worry, we're not going to be seeing scratch marks. I'm going to be going that way too. You'll be pleased to know that our shim is holding so far, touch wood, and I have just spent a few minutes shaving it down with sandpaper so that the corner is sitting at a height that I want. So now I will screw it in and then we can sand over and level the full assembly. Now, I won't say I can't feel that, I can. And what it feels like is a well-levelled access port cover. So on to the next step, the scary one. StewMac and ILM have a binding router jig that's based on some aluminium extrusion and some rollers that run up and down it. This monstrosity, using kitchen drawer runners, is based on that design, only with everything turned up to 11. I wanted everything turned up to 11 so that I could build acoustic bass guitars and use the same holding cradles that I already had. Unfortunately, by everything, I also mean the weight, hence the need for the skyhook and bungee cord. And I also mean the diameter of the router bit, which means I can't turn the router up to full power or it'll just rattle itself to death. I built 3 guitars using the small aluminium barrel jig for a Dremel, so it can be done, but it's not fun, it's very slow, and it's murder on your thumbs because there's a strong risk of it tilting the wrong way and gouging into the side of your guitar. So to stop that, you've got to really push against the roller with your thumb. This, on the other hand, is merely terrifying. It is also quite a messy process, if you failed to notice. But when I run my finger around the edges, it all feels smooth, there are no divots, although I have needed to defuzz some of the edges. But that is not the end of the terror, because we now have to glue in the bindings. And I've tried a bunch of methods, and my current method involves this. As you may recall, our guitar, formerly identified as flat, then became curve curious, and finally came out as totally bent. Now it wants to experiment with S&M. So I've got it sitting in one half of the Solera mould, and we've put it inside this clamp, or vise if you like, and we're tightening it up good and snug. I'm going to be working with this facing me, but this is what it looks like. Remember these? Well, the first step is to cut them to length, and each side of the guitar, cutaway versus non-cutaway, has a slightly different strategy. At this end it's quite easy, we just make it a little bit too long, so that's a very trivial cut to make. At the tail end, it is another matter. We have to get it so that the 2 pieces, or at the very least the outer one, ends at the middle of the centre strip that we glued in earlier. And we have to get it there so that as we clamp it and all the gaps go away, it ends up being where we need it to be. We also want the cut to be square. I just went and consulted my notes, and I'm awful glad I did, because we're about to skip a step. What we need to do first is open up the neck pocket and also glue in the vertical strip along the edge of the cutaway. So let's do that. Remember this thing from the last video? I've trimmed it down and sanded it, etc. And we're just going to glue it into the channel.